The Russian sleep experiment is a widely known urban legend, but it has been passed down as though it were a true story. Here is a narrative based on that legend: the Russian sleep experiment, a descent into madness. In the late 1940s, during the height of the Cold War, Soviet researchers began a top-secret project deep in the frozen Siberian wilderness. The goal was to find a way to keep soldiers awake for days on end without suffering any physical or mental deterioration. They devised an experiment that would push the boundaries of human endurance and sanity. 5 political prisoners, enemies of the Soviet state, were selected to participate. In exchange for their freedom, they agreed to be confined in a sealed chamber where a stimulant gas would keep them awake for 30 days. The researchers believed that this prolonged wakefulness would not only sharpen their minds, but also create a new breed of soldier, one that would need no sleep. The prisoners were promised their freedom if they complied for the full duration of the experiment. The room was stocked with basic necessities: books, cots, running water, and food to last over a month. But the gas was constantly pumped into the chamber to ensure they would not fall asleep. The room was fitted with microphones and a two-way mirror, so the scientists could monitor the subjects at all times. At first, everything went as expected. The prisoners were talkative and cooperative, discussing their pasts and future plans. But after the 3rd day, the conversations became darker. Paranoia began to set in. The prisoners spoke less and stared blankly into space. The effects of sleeplessness became more evident as they started showing signs of agitation, pacing the room and whispering to themselves. By the 5th day, things took a sinister turn. One of the prisoners started screaming uncontrollably for hours, tearing at his throat until he was left hoarse and bleeding. Instead of reacting to him, the others seemed oddly detached, as if they couldn't hear his desperate cries. They began to act erratically, tearing apart the books and smearing the pages with feces, covering the windows so the researchers could no longer observe them. The scientists, concerned but curious, continued the experiment. They maintained audio surveillance, but after the 10th day, the room fell completely silent. The researchers assumed the subjects had finally fallen asleep. They debated whether to open the chamber to investigate, but decided to wait another day. On the 15th day, unable to bear the silence any longer, the researchers initiated a protocol to open the chamber. As the airlock hissed open and the stimulant gas dissipated, they were greeted by a scene that haunted their nightmares for years to come. The prisoners were no longer recognizable. Their flesh had been shredded as if they had attacked themselves in a frenzy of madness. Blood smeared the walls and floor, and the remains of torn skin and muscle were scattered around the room. 2 of the prisoners were already dead, their bodies mutilated beyond recognition. The 3 who were still alive were in a horrifying state. Their eyes were wide open, bloodshot, and staring into the void. One man had torn his own abdomen open, exposing his organs, but somehow still alive. He begged the researchers to turn the gas back on, his voice raw and desperate. "We need it," he whispered. "We don't want to sleep anymore." The surviving prisoners resisted any attempt to leave the chamber, violently attacking the guards who tried to subdue them. They seemed to possess inhuman strength, driven by some unnatural force. When asked why they had harmed themselves, one prisoner responded with a chilling smile. "We are the madness. It's inside all of us. We wanted to keep it out, but now, it's all we are." The experiment was abruptly halted. The surviving subjects were euthanized after violent attempts to contain them failed. Official records of the experiment were sealed, buried deep within Soviet archives. The few scientists who worked on the project either vanished or were silenced, their knowledge of the incident hidden from the world. But rumors persisted, whispered among the Russian scientific community for decades. Some believed the experiment had opened a door to something darker within the human psyche, something primal, waiting to be unleashed when sleep, the last refuge of the sane mind, was taken away. The Russian sleep experiment remains one of the most disturbing stories of psychological horror. Whether myth or truth, it serves as a reminder of the terrifying consequences that can arise when science dares to tamper with the boundaries of human endurance.